Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Fargo O'Brien, and I am your host for the Healing Hour podcast. We are here. What is today? I don't even know. Oh, it's been a week, y'all. What is today? Thursday, September 18th, 2025. And it's been a week for me personally and everywhere. So today we're going to be talking about interpersonal effectiveness. How do we interact with other people effectively? And what does that mean? It's certainly skills we don't have enough of. There are certainly skills we don't learn early enough in life. So we're going to be talking about it today. And hopefully give you guys some tips on how to have conversations, how to have difficult conversations, how to manage conflict, how to manage your own feelings in conflict, and those types of things. So I think it's going to be really informative, especially if you struggle in your emotions, especially if you cannot disagree with somebody peacefully. These are the skills for you, which honestly is like a ton of freaking people. So I hope this gets some views. Oh, let's see. I'm doing a bunch of stuff. As you guys know, I've started a new role as adjunct faculty at Cleveland State, and that has been good, but it's definitely keeping me busy. I've had a lot to do with my students in the last couple of weeks. I have many more student meetings today. So even though I don't do direct psychotherapy practice on Thursday, I'm still having a lot of face-to-face meetings going on. So that keeps me busy and makes the day go by fast. Maybe, I don't know. Sometimes I think face-to-face meetings makes it feel long, and sometimes it makes it feel like the day is going fast. This week they have all felt long. Sorry, I'm fidgety, guys. Not comfortable in my body today, even though I have tried some things this morning to get comfortable. Let's see. Let's see, where am I at? Let me do my check-in. You guys know what I have going on today. My best friend is currently in brain surgery, down at Duke Medical Center. And so that has been on my mind a lot. My best friend was having a lot of debilitating symptoms this summer: vertigo, nausea, vomiting, inability to hold her head up or walk, or all kinds of crazy stuff. Lo and behold, they have found out that she has a tumor pressing on the part of her brain that affects those things. So she is in surgery right now. It was about 7:30 this morning, and I got a text from her husband letting me know that she was in the operating room. I haven't heard anything back yet. Yes, my buddy Chasen is here. Hi, Chasen. I'm so glad that you're here. And he says, prayers for your friend. Thank you so much. I've been asking my friends to pray for my bestie. I would be for sure dead in a gutter if it weren't for her love and friendship for the last 22 years in my life. She's very important to me. I think she's in good care, and some good surgeons and some good recommendations for some surgeons at Duke Medical Center. So I am hopeful that the surgery is going to go well, it's going to be successful, and she's not going to suffer and struggle anymore. She's a mom of 2 little kids. She's a school teacher. Her husband is a firefighter and an EMT. They're great public servants and just like wonderful people. So that's on my mind today. I want to hear back that she's out and everything is okay. So that has me just like a little bit distracted, as that's on my mind. But I'm going to try to keep myself busy until I hear back from her spouse, hopefully soon. I guess that's about it. Mostly, like, that's been on my mind. It's been a busy week. I'm feeling kind of drained and sluggish. But I'm here, and we're going to talk about interpersonal effectiveness. So if you want to take 3 deep breaths with me, let's get grounded before we get into this topic, because it may kick up some things for you. I have not always been interpersonally effective. A lot of times I'm still not if I'm activated or triggered in my trauma. Most of the people that see me on here have never seen that side of me, and how lucky you are. But the people in my life that have seen it, my family, my spouse, the random front desk person that, that just, I don't know. There have been moments I have not been effective interpersonally. So these skills are good for me just as they are good for anybody else. So let's take 3 deep breaths to get grounded. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Here we go. Breath number 1. Slow on that exhale. Number 2. And one more. That probably takes less than 30 seconds, guys. And that leaves me feeling much more grounded, calm, like a little bit more focused. I can maybe be a little bit more linear for you guys as we go through this and less all over the place. So hopefully you find it like relaxing for your nervous system and for your body as well. Grab your coffee, tea, whatever else, and let's get to some learning. Let me get my slide deck back up here for you guys. Okay. Got questions? Let me know. Got my buddy Jason in the house. I appreciate you. Guys, damn. Jason's going to be on next week. I'm over here like in the thought about my friend and like all the other stuff I have to do. Yes, 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 yes. So my buddy Jason that you see interact with me in the chat all the time on the show is going to be joining next week. Talking some about his nonprofit, how that's been healing for him and healing for his community of people, and some cool stuff that he has been doing there. I have the privilege of working with Jason and his nonprofit HR4U and Transformation Kitchen. They are gearing up for some more stuff that's going to be awesome. They have a big event on October 10th, which is why Jason's going to come on and talk about that. We're going to try to boost folks getting tickets for this awesome event to support this nonprofit. I'm so excited about that. As I get into the some more announcements at the end of this show, I'll let you guys know. Like I got more guests coming. Jason says he's honored. Me too, buddy. I can't wait to have you on here. Okay, let's learn about interpersonal effectiveness and how to engage with others without causing harm, either to yourself or the other person. So in DBT, interpersonal effectiveness skills are ones that help build self-respect and maintain that self-respect when setting boundaries or asking for what you need. And more broadly, it can just be helping you build and maintain your self-respect in argument, in conflict, in disagreement, and moving through those things with a little bit more calm and connection rather than discourse and dissension, basically. And there's been a lot happening in the last week. I am certainly not going to make any statements naming anything in anybody or any political leaning things. If it really works the way I've been trying to make it work, then nobody really knows where I stand anywhere, except that I'm for the promotion of healing and trauma-informed care, and that should be all you need to know. But there's been a big event people have been talking about in the last week, but many smaller ones related to interpersonal violence and interpersonal violence related to difference of opinion, differing views. And basically, that's just not good for any of us, right? Like, if it's not happening to you now, we maybe should be a little bit concerned that we don't want it to happen to us ever. I'm on this show. I speak publicly all the time. I'm not usually calling too many people out by name, except health insurance companies that I think suck. And you guys all know that. I've told them too when I get on with their customer service or whatever problem I have. But otherwise, right, I'm not naming names. I'm not choosing a side in any way that you guys would recognize, I just want to say interpersonal violence is not the answer. That's certainly not a pathway towards safety and healing. And I think there is actually a better way if we could all just develop some skills and stop passing the buck, take accountability, stop placing blame on the other person or the other party, and pay attention to your own role and impact interpersonally, right? Like, stop pointing the finger and look at yourself and ask yourself, are you doing these things well? If you are not, then you got enough on your own side of the street to clean up before we are out here blasting and talking about anybody else doing anything else in their reactions to their emotions. So we're going to be talking about interpersonal effectiveness, definitions of it, why we would use it, the role of validation in interpersonal effectiveness. We're going to talk about things that impact not effectively interacting, like implicit bias, emotional dysregulation, defensiveness, and manipulation. We're going to talk about some things that facilitate effectively interacting with others, like empathy, conflict de-escalation, accountability, and curiosity without judgment, and the impact of these things on trust. Jason says, yes, we have to take ownership. I'm with you, buddy, right? Like, and you guys get to hear more about Jason. He and I have talked a lot. Like, he's walked his own healing road. I've walked my own healing road. It's not pretty sometimes. It's not fun sometimes. We've made poor decision in our spaces of not being healthy, and we have to take ownership of those, even though we were in spaces where we weren't healthy. That's what we can say about this, guys. If somebody is engaging in interpersonal violence that leads to severe injury or death, they are not well or healthy, guys. This is not a healthy person making a rational decision. This is an unhealthy person making a decision, usually based out of emotion and reaction. But that's also probably because this person does not have skills to manage those things. That's why we're going to be talking about some of this. So what is it? Interpersonal effectiveness. What is this exactly? This refers to skills and strategies used to communicate effectively, build positive relationships, and manage conflicts while maintaining self-respect. If you're engaging in interpersonal violence, I can't imagine that you're going to have much self-respect after that. Interpersonal effectiveness encompasses the ability to interact with others in a way that is assertive, respectful, and constructive. Interpersonal violence is none of those. It is not assertive. It is aggressive. It is not respectful. It is disrespectful. It is not constructive. It is deconstructive. It basically does not do anything helpful for anybody, even the person perpetrating the violence. Interpersonal effectiveness is crucial for personal and professional success, as it helps individuals express needs, resolve conflicts, and foster healthy relationships. Why engage effectively with people? Well, there are many reasons we would want to effectively interact with other people. Some of these include resolving conflict, being heard or understood, to facilitate a certain result or outcome, to preserve a relationship. To be effective interpersonally requires self-esteem, self-respect, self-awareness, and self-regulation on your own end. So we are talking about how you can engage effectively with other people. We are not talking about what other people can do to engage effectively with you that you don't have control over. Yes, it'd be great if everybody was using these skills. That's why. But you only have control over you. So you only have control over whether or not you engage in these things. The hope is that at least one person is engaging these things. We sort of bring down the tension a bit, and we get the other person to engage in these things in this way. But hear me clearly, guys, this is your work. This is your self-work to do, to become self-aware, to learn how to self-regulate so that you have good quality self-esteem and good quality self-respect, and taking that into your interactions with other people. To be effective interpersonally also requires compassion, non-judgment, remaining present, and avoiding harmful tactics to express emotions or make your point. Who doesn't need this shit, guys? it's been a time, right? Like we need these skills more than ever. So if you are an individual who does not have these skills, please reach out to me. I can coach you on these skills. We can talk about real world scenarios in your life and how to practice these. If you are a business organization and you need better communication, interpersonal effectiveness in your team, in your organization, please call me. I can train everybody in these skills. We can practice together. We can practice together in hopefully a safe container so that when you have to take this to potentially a less safe container, that you can still access these skills. The role of validation in interpersonal effectiveness, validation of ourselves and our experiences and of others and their experiences is crucial for interpersonal effectiveness. Let's be clear here. Validation does not equal agreement or agreeing with them, condoning, or changing your view. Validation does not mean you have to agree with the other person. You're condoning what they believe, think, or have done or do, and you don't have to change your view to adopt their view. That's not what validation is. What validation does equate to is recognition or affirmation that a person or their feelings or opinions are valid and worthwhile. Validation does equal accepting a person's reality as they see it. You don't have to agree. You don't have to change your view to see it the way that they see it. You just have to see it the way they see it to understand where they're coming from. The role of validation and interpersonal effectiveness is pretty huge. It helps build trust. It strengthens our connections. It reduces emotional arousal in both us and others. So when you engage in validation for yourself, it reduces your emotional arousal. And if you validate somebody else, it reduces their emotional arousal. And validation also reduces defensiveness in ourselves and in other people. Okay, let's talk about first when we're not effectively interacting with others, what kinds of things are we maybe doing that are not effective, okay? Or the things that get in the way of being effective, communicating or interacting interpersonally. Implicit bias often prevents effectively interacting with others. Well, what is this? An implicit bias is any bias a person holds that they are not consciously aware of. This is implicit, not consciously aware of, but you'll maybe need to do some self-reflection and gain some self-awareness to find these biases. But an implicit bias is one that somebody is not consciously aware of. And an implicit bias can affect the way that you behave and the decisions you make without you realizing it. And with everything I know about learning, about early learning, about attachment, about the salience of early learning, about where that puts blinders on for us, especially in childhood trauma or abuse neglect situations when there's like when we're in early development, there's a lot of learning around us that we just sort of absorb, that we don't realize we've absorbed, that we just act out in our adult life, that we don't really know where it came from, but we learned it early. That's this. Implicit bias is often something we've learned early that we don't realize is maybe even a part of us, and we don't know how it affects us. So you really have to dig deep to figure out what this is. Let me tell you something about clinical social work programs. They address this hard, fast, and ongoing until you finish your program. Having social workers look at themselves in their training program, in their higher education, in their master's social work programs is crucial. They make us do so much in reflecting on our biases and how that might impact us in the room with clients. So, does that mean everybody is great at dealing with it? No, but let me tell you, they teach us how to look at this for ourselves, how to talk about it in a group, how to write about it in a paper, and how to mitigate it so that we can provide good care. I'm also, this is part of what I'm ensuring as faculty at Cleveland State with my students that are in field placements and internships, implicit bias, their personal views, cultural views and how they show up and maybe impact their work with diverse clients is huge in social work, is huge in clinical work of any kind. And I am grateful for accredited social work programs that have, early learning practitioners understand this about themselves and how to self-reflect on it, to talk about it without shame with their supervisors and interdisciplinary groups and other groups, to really be able to do something about it, and so that it doesn't impact negatively in your care or your service provision. Some things that could show up as a result of implicit bias are these things called the halo effect and the horn effect. So the halo effect is when your general impression of someone influences your opinion of their actual traits and actions. So if you view a person positively in one way, you tend to assume their other attributes are also positive, right? So it's sort of seeing one thing good and then assuming the person is all good. Okay, the horn effect is the opposite of that. And it's when you make a snap judgment about someone on the basis of one negative trait, and a single negative trait can lead to an unfairly negative overall impression of a person. So this would be all bad based on one thing that we've seen. And I think it's pretty easy to recognize that if we're in the halo effect or horn effect, we're not really being objective. We're missing some pieces. And we're maybe unfairly representing or categorizing this person either as more positive than they need to be seen or more negative than they need to be seen. Got another friend in the house. Tracy, hello from Houston. Thank you for chiming in. I'm so glad that you are enjoying my slide deck on interpersonal effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Let other people know if you're finding this information helpful, that they should watch this replay. Again, I don't know anybody who can't use this, me included, guys. It's great for me to be reminded of these things. Okay, some other things that impact interacting effectively with others. Emotion dysregulation often prevents effectively interacting with others because this is difficulty with managing or reducing the intensity of our emotions. Emotional dysregulation means being vulnerable to our emotions taking over. Emotional dysregulation means a lack of or poor skills to regulate and stay present. So if you have childhood trauma, if you have a long history of trauma, if you have chronic trauma, if you have unhealed or unresolved trauma, if you have unhealed, unresolved, and untreated mental health disorders, you could potentially be struggling with emotional dysregulation. And you need to learn some skills for regulation first. Learning your biases that impact how you show up with other people, and then addressing and understanding, self-reflecting, and being aware of your emotions, the intensity, and what that does in your mind, body, and nervous system when you're in dysregulation, and then your responsibility to learn to regulate those things. So those are two things that you do to interact effectively with other people before other people are even around. Okay, that's the self-work. So contingency management would be using skillful and helpful responses to your emotions or managing your emotions, while also decreasing maladaptive or unhelpful behaviors to your emotions. So increasing healthy skills, decreasing unhealthy skills, right, in managing your emotion. This requires practice of mindfulness. Contingency management for emotion regulation requires the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is being present with whatever's here in the present time with awareness, without judgment. Tips to manage emotions, to engage effectively with others. Pause before responding. Ask for clarification over making a faulty assumption. Acknowledge emotions arising in you. And take space as needed. Something else that gets in the way of us effectively interacting with other people is defensiveness. And this often prevents effectively interacting with others because defensiveness means certain things, feelings, experience, perceptions, and nervous system responses can ignite defensiveness. Experiences, either externally or in your nervous system, such as feeling criticized, feeling dismissed, feeling controlled, feeling misunderstood, can lead to defensiveness in you. If you feel criticized, if you feel dismissed, if you feel controlled, if you feel misunderstood, then you could be defensive interacting with somebody else. And guess what? If somebody you're interacting with feels criticized, feels controlled, feels dismissed, or feels misunderstood, they may be defensive with you. Right? So we have to sort of pay attention to this. And Chasen says the pause is huge. Yes, it is. And let me ask Chasen, was it hard for you to learn to pause? Because that's been hard for me. It's like, it's great to do. It's hard to practice pausing when something hits an emotional button in you and you just like shoot up to the top, right? Like taking that pause, not easy, but absolutely correct. It is huge. So let's look at these things. Feeling criticized can lead to justifying whatever you're doing, done, said, whatever, over explaining whatever you do, done, said, whatever, and getting angry with the other person. This is all going to impact your ability to interact effectively with somebody else. And so, can you do anything about somebody criticizing you? No. Can you do something about somebody not criticizing you, but it feels like criticism? No. What can you do is recognize that that feeling is coming up in you. And when that feeling is coming up in you, it can like turn on the switch for being defensive. And so if you feel criticized, this is where we go back to emotion regulation skills. It's like we got to do something with that so that we're not showing up with defensiveness. Okay. So let me be clear. It's still your responsibility to deal with these things. If you feel criticized or if you're actually criticized, it's not fun. Nobody likes that. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it. I hate feeling like I did something wrong, especially if I did something wrong interpersonally. And ironically, as soon as I feel like I did something wrong interpersonally, I'm in my trauma shit, which for me is like anger, aggressive, abject rage. And then I'm really not engaging effectively interpersonally, even though I feel bad that I already did something to negatively impact a person. And now I'm doing more things that probably negatively impact a person because I'm upset at myself for already engaging something that maybe negatively impacted a person. Like, and if you point that out to me, it's like the end of the world. It is so hard for me to sit with that because I feel so bad about myself. And when I end up in that place, it just comes out in this trauma reaction, which for me is like abject rage. And so it's really important that I recognize when this feeling comes up in me so I can do something about it or take this very necessary pause, like Chasen and I are talking about. Feeling dismissed can lead to feeling small, withdrawing, or shutting down. So let's be clear, aggressiveness and arguing and outwards expression of emotion are not the only things that impact interpersonal effectiveness. If you shut down, turn off, disengage, not present, that also negatively impacts interpersonal effectiveness. So you have to recognize if you feel dismissed, and then if there is an urge to like shut down, right? Like you have to find a way to deal with those feelings and that urge so that you can stay present for whatever's going on, right? Interpersonally with somebody else. Feeling controlled can lead to resisting, arguing, and digging in your heels, right? Like all of these things are defensiveness, right? Resisting, arguing, justifying, over explaining, withdrawing. All of these things are defensive responses. Feeling misunderstood can lead to over explaining, getting defensive, and not listening, right? Like this is where we can get into, yeah, but, yeah, you're not getting it, but, and it's like, okay, maybe they do misunderstand you, but really what's more important for you not to be in the yeah, but and trying to explain something is just recognize that you are feeling misunderstood, which might mean I need to take a pause. feeling like you're not getting it, and like I'm getting too defensive, and so I need a minute to be able to come back to this, maybe a day, maybe an hour, whatever, right? Like the pause is huge, as Jason says. So try to recognize like what happens in you if you feel criticized, feel controlled, feel dismissed, or feel misunderstood. And please understand that if you accidentally or purposefully, criticize, control, dismiss, or misunderstand somebody else, it's likely that defensiveness is going to come up in them. This is human behavior, guys, especially if you've never learned good social emotional learning skills, communication skills, or interpersonal effectiveness skills, which I don't know about you guys, but I only learned the absolute opposite of all of that in my family system. Like literally no good skills interpersonally at all did I get from my family system, and everything I have had to learn as an adult. So if this is you, it is possible to learn things, but you have to be an active participant in that learning and trying to do things differently than how you were taught, which means it's not okay just to get defensive and lose your shit on people, which I often do, have done many a times, and I got to deal with that. Okay, we're also not effectively interacting with others when we're using manipulation, just period, point blank. If you are manipulating somebody, you are not engaging effectively. And in fact, you are causing harm. So manipulation often prevents effectively interacting with others because the very definition means one's not interested in being effective interpersonally. Instead, the aim is to control, exploit, confuse, or remain in a position of power over another person. So this is not like I want to engage equally and effectively with them. It's that I want to control, exploit, take advantage of, and be in power over them. So I will manipulate. Manipulation looks and sounds like intended to guilt or control the other person, focus on the other person changing without regard to their role in the dynamic. This is taking ownership. Like, so if you're focusing just on the other person and not taking ownership, that can be manipulation. Shutting down communication about topics important to the other person. Manipulation can also look and sound like denying accountability for feelings, choices, actions, and desires of self. Ignoring or denying the validity of the other person's feelings or experiences and blaming the other person. These are all manipulation things that can impact, and certainly do negatively impact, interpersonal effectiveness. Manipulation also looks and sounds like feeling entitled to the other person behaving or being a certain way. This one's big, guys. Like you just think somebody else should be like this, should act like this. We don't get to do that. We don't get to control that. It looks and sounds like ignoring boundaries that have been stated and agreements that have been made. It looks and sounds like playing the victim when the person has actually been an active participant in whatever is going on or whatever issue is there. Ultimately, manipulation is intended to exploit others rather than effectively engage with others. These force outcomes that are desirable for one person, but not both. The person manipulating gets what they want, the other person harmed. Absolutely not getting what they want in that interaction. And let's be clear. Manipulation is more than just a maladaptive behavior that negatively impacts interpersonal effectiveness. Manipulation is a premeditated, purposeful, intentional way of being or communicating with others to cause harm and to keep the upper hand. It's a tactic. It's being used all the time around us, guys. Open your eyeballs. Almost everything that you see is intended to manipulate. It's people wanting to persuade you to behave and be in a way that they find acceptable, feeling entitled that you behave in a way that they find acceptable, not in a way that you find acceptable, in a way that they find that you behave is acceptable, even if they don't do the same thing. That's that they don't take ownership or responsibility, but impose it on you. It's absolutely harmful to engage in manipulation. If you're not sure if you engage in manipulation, I suggest you do a serious deep dive into self-reflection. All right, let's move into some things that help us engage effectively with others. Empathy often supports effectively interacting with others. What is empathy? It's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Not agree, but understand, but connect to, but can see where they feel like blank, even if you don't feel like blank about the same situation. Okay. Empathy involves putting oneself in the other's shoes, and it is experiencing and affirming the other person's emotions from their perspective, not from your perspective and lived experiences, from their perspective and lived experiences. This is where we get into so much trouble. You don't have to have walked through it yourself to be empathetic to somebody else that has. You just can't cut them off at the nose, basically, right? Like if you are not a Black woman, then you need to listen intently about the experience and emotions of being a Black woman from their perspective, right? Like you cannot make assumptions, and you can't assume that their experiences in life and education and doctor's appointments and workplaces has been the same of yours. So if there is sharing of something that is different from you and your experiences, having empathy is listening intently to try to understand it from their lived experience, which is different than yours, which has a different impact, guys. Like if you've watched any of my shows, especially on trauma, generational trauma, the neuroscience of these things, there's absolutely a difference in how people show up in the world based on their experiences. And a lot of those things are internal, biological, and neurological. And that fact in and of itself should be why we extend empathy to people that show up differently than us. Okay. Empathy is understanding a person from their frame of reference, right? Or their perspective rather than your own. And it's considering their lived experience as impacting their perspective. Empathy is essential for developing compassion. If you do not have empathy, you can't have compassion for somebody's situation or hardship, difficulty, or difference from you. Empathy looks and sounds like asking, clarifying, validating, affirming, listening intently, like I've said, not interrupting, staying present, being curious, pausing, and avoiding assumptions. If you do not know how to do these things, ask, clarify, validate, affirm, listen intently, not interrupt, stay present, remain curious, pause, or avoid assumptions, then you need to call me to set up one-to-one skills coaching on learning how to do these things. You can learn empathy. I can teach you these skills. So, to interact effectively with others, we need empathy. Let's be clear on what is not empathy that maybe people often engage in conversations or interpersonally interacting with another individual, so that we're clear. So let me go back one slide and just empathy is these things: asking, clarifying, validating, affirming. Okay. Empathy is not probing, reassuring, advising, persuading, agreeing, distracting. None of these are empathy. Okay. Probing is asking questions to gather facts or more information. That's not empathetic. You let them share what they want to share. Reassuring would be comforting, sympathizing, consoling. That's not the same as empathizing. Understand the difference. If you don't know it, look up the definitions. So reassuring somebody is not engaging in empathy. Advising, making suggestions or providing solutions, not empathetic. Persuading, lecturing, arguing, disagreeing, or reasoning, not empathetic. Agreeing, telling them that they're right, or proving or praising. Distracting, like with humor or changing the subject, not being empathetic in the moment if we're doing that, guys. Empathy is also not moralizing, analyzing, judging, shaming, directing, or warning anybody. It's not empathetic. You're basically overstepping if you're doing any of these things, and you just need to take a step back and listen intently and maybe just pause and be quiet. Okay. Because if you can't hear what somebody else is going through, their view, their opinion, their lived experience that's different than yours without doing any of these 8 things: probing, reassuring, advising, persuading, agreeing, distracting, moralizing, analyzing, judging, shaming, directing, or warning, then you have some work to do. Moralizing is telling others what they should do and why. Analyzing is reinterpreting or explaining what is said. Judging is blaming, criticizing, or disagreeing. Shaming is demeaning or ridiculing or having a ridiculing tone or disapproving. Directing is telling what to do, like an order or command, rather than moralizing, which is telling what they should do and why. Directing is saying, do this. Moralize is saying you should do this because. And then warning is pointing out the risk and dangers. It's not for you to do, right? You are to ask, clarify, intently listen, understand, be empathetic, which is none of these things. Okay, we are effectively interacting with others when we engage in de-escalation during conflict. De-escalation in conflict often supports effectively interacting with others. But before we can do that in with somebody else, right? First, we have to be able to de-escalate ourselves or regulate the intensity of our own emotions during conflict or disagreement. This goes back to the self-respect, self-awareness, self-esteem types and self-determination types and self-regulation types of things going on here, right? So if you get angry, get aggressive, get defensive, get manipulative during conflict, then you need to recognize something's going on in you, and you need to down-regulate the intensity of those emotions to be able to effectively engage in a conflict or disagreement. Yes, folks, we can do that. We can learn skills to engage effectively during conflict or disagreement. And we first do that by recognizing our own emotions getting kicked up and using healthy skills to regulate those so we can remain present, curious, and non-judgmental in the space with somebody else in which we are having a disagreement or conflict with. De-escalation starts with awareness. Can you recognize the signs of escalation in yourself? What does it look like, feel like, sound like, appear like to others? Do you even know what happens if you start to get escalated during a conflict? So we need to recognize our own activations and somatic clues first. With this, we have to de-escalate ourselves first. So you have to recognize your own nervous system activations, your own body cues and clues, and your own emotional dysregulation and intensity first. So what happens in you? Some body or somatic clues could be feeling flushed or hot, fidgeting or pacing, an increased heart rate, rapid or shallow breathing, experiencing tense muscles. It could also be clenched fists or large movements, feeling keyed up or shut down. Remember, some people respond to conflict not with aggression, but with passivity and just shut down. So that's something to look for in your body. Maybe you're turning off. Maybe you're in your mind. Maybe you get tired. That kind of thing. Using aggressive body language, raising your voice or shouting, using harsh language, and using blame or criticism. These are all signs of escalating during a conversation, argument, conflict, or any other interpersonal interaction. I do not recommend pointing these out to others unless you can first identify how you respond in tension. So it is not going to do you any good interpersonally to say, hey, you're shouting at me. Why don't you bring it down some, buddy? That's not de-escalating shit, guys. We ain't doing nothing there. What you can do in that scenario is say, hey, your raised voice is impacting my ability to stay open, stay present, not be defensive, and not get into my own behaviors. So I need to take a break until we can talk about this calmly. We don't say, hey, you're wrong for shouting. We say, hey, that's impacting me and it's impacting my ability to sit here and be present with you. So I need to take a pause. I statements, guys. Stop placing blame on other people. Do what's good for you. Do you have to stand there and get shouted at? No. Do you have to point out that their shouting is wrong? Also, no. All you have to do is what is good for you in that moment. And if you are doing that using healthy skills, it's likely going to be good interpersonally. Are you going to solve the thing right now? No, but it is going to help maintain that interpersonal connection or relationship by you not getting into all of your negative stuff because this person is shouting at you, right? And this goes back to like, you're responsible for you. Take care of yourself. Recognize when defensiveness is coming up in you and do something about it. Does it mean stand there and take it and be empathetic to somebody who's shouting? No, it means we need to take a pause until you can be empathetic because that person is no longer shouting. Okay. Now you don't have to make them not shout. If you come back to talk about the situation again and they're still shouting, then you can exit again and say, hey, this just isn't working. We maybe can't seem to talk about this without you shouting. I don't really want to be in that situation. So we're going to have to just close this case where it's at, right? And move on. Maybe come back to it later, maybe not. I'm not suggesting you put yourself in a verbally, emotionally, psychologically, or physically harmful way. But you can't de-escalate somebody else if you're not first taking responsibility for yourself. So we are effectively interacting with others when we engage in our attempts to de-escalate conflict. And after we've addressed everything with ourselves, ways that we could de-escalate conflict with another person. Again, these are all things you're going to do rather than point out somebody else should do. Okay. You are going to engage in these with the hope that the interaction is going to be better because at least one person is gauging in the healthy skills. And if you remain in those healthy skills and the other person gets in unhealthy skills, it'll be very obvious. And then we can just take a step back. Okay. So again, these are things that you are doing to try to de-escalate a conflict. Stating, pausing, accepting, and asking. What do those mean? Stating your needs, feelings, how you were impacted by the interaction or something else, whatever you're addressing. Like if we take a lot of the stuff that's happened in the last week, how does that look? That means maybe individually with that person, you state how you were impacted by them saying X, saying Y, believing blank, endorsing blank policy. State how you were impacted. Also, try pausing after sharing your needs or your perspective or how you were impacted, right? We can't just keep going on and on and on and on and on and on. That's going to make somebody else like get defensive and get keyed up. Accepting that moments of silence are necessary for processing. This is kind of goes along with pausing. Like you have to state your needs or how you were impacted and then pause and then wait for the other person to consider that and then be able to respond to you effectively. If you want them just to spout out an answer, it might not be great because they haven't had time. So accept that we're maybe going to sit there in some silence for a little bit. Also try asking clarifying questions to ensure the other understands you, and ask clarifying questions to make sure that you understand the other person. Again, this isn't one of those things like moralizing or demanding or any of those things. It's simply not assuming, and it's asking so that you understand where they're coming from, right? That they can affirm to you that you've heard them correctly, basically, that you are getting it, hearing it, right? Understanding it. That's why we ask questions. Okay. Taking accountability supports interacting effectively with others. And we do this by engaging in empathy for ourselves and for others, and by avoiding defensiveness. Okay. So to take accountability might mean that somebody pointed something else out to us, something we did that hurt them or had a negative impact. Okay. We take accountability when that's brought up, right? a disagreement, a conflict. I would call that a conflict. Doesn't feel good to me if somebody says, hey, you did this and it negatively impacted me. That immediately puts me on edge and really close, if not directly, into my trauma responses for what I explained to you guys earlier. I feel so bad about that. And then I just get all mixed up in my feelings. When I'm all mixed up in my feelings, my trauma reaction is abject rage. So again, it's not interpersonally effective at all. And so I have to recognize that taking accountability for me means not getting all worked up and beating myself up because I'm going to react poorly in the moment. And so I have to have compassion and empathy for myself and how bad I feel about myself or whatever I did that negatively impacted somebody, maybe first, to then avoid being defensive when somebody is bringing that to my attention, right? Taking accountability supports interacting effective with others by owning whatever part you played in whatever interpersonal issue or breakdown occurred, whether it was a project, a meeting, a conversation, or something else. Owning whatever part you played in whatever happened, whatever breakdown or negative impact or outcome was a result. If you played a part in it, you have to own your part, even if you didn't intend to, right? Even if you didn't intend for that negative outcome, it's better interpersonally if you can just say, oh yeah, I did that. Didn't realize it was going to have that negative impact. I can see that. I'll work on changing that in the future, etc. Right? We take accountability by not doing these things. Stating what the other person did wrong. Again, not going to be helpful. You need to take responsibility for yourself. Repeating the issue over and over again. That's not pausing, right? And waiting, right, for the other person to respond. That's just you probably spitting it out and in this sort of uncontrolled way. Taking accountability it's not taking accountability if we refuse to accept the moments of silence by constantly talking or talking over somebody and not letting them process to respond. And we're not taking accountability by offering new information constantly, as this can overwhelm the other person. I can easily do the repeating, the not accepting, sort of talking over somebody. And that's when I'm probably in my defensiveness and over explaining and a lot of other things. Right. And so I absolutely need to pause in those moments, take a step back and realize I'm not taking accountability and I'm not gauging it effectively. It's probably because I'm feeling an emotion or I'm being defensive and I need to do something with that first. Okay. We are effectively interacting with others when we use curiosity over judgment. Curiosity over judgment supports interacting effectively with others. How do we get to a place of being curious more readily instead of being critical or judgmental more readily? Because that's where we're at, guys. Who is seeing that out there? People are critical and judgmental immediately. There is like no space to pause and consider it. We can just be curious. If we could not judge this, if we could see this from another perspective, like people are quick to criticize and judge, and people are slow to be curious and open. And we got to reverse that. And this is a skill that we can learn and practice, guys. It takes work, but it can be done. Curiosity over judgment supports interacting effectively with others. And how do we engage in curiosity over judgment? How do we get to a place of being curious more readily and not being critical immediately? This stems from feeling safe within ourselves first and then with others, right? It's going to be really hard for you to be curious and open if you don't feel safe. And I get that. We're maybe thrown into situations where we don't feel safe all the time. So what we need to do is learn how we can at least feel safe within our bodies and our own context, even if maybe the situation or the context around us isn't safe, to ensure that we are coming from a grounded place of balance, of strength, of calm in our nervous systems so that we can engage effectively with others. We can't control every part of our context. We cannot control what other people do. We can't control what other people do that make us feel unsafe, but we can do our very best to tap into safety within ourselves or do things that help us get back to that, which might mean leaving a situation or taking a pause in the moment. And that's fine. Okay, but we need to be able to recognize that. So how do we know if we're feeling safe? Signs of feeling safe could be feeling at peace or ease in your body, ability to show up as your authentic self without having to hide parts of yourself, being open and willing to try new things. Are you in that kind of space? Are you feeling that kind of way? That's likely a signs of safety. Some other signs of feeling safe include acceptance of your insecurities without shame. We just own that we're not perfect, right? This is empathy and compassion without feeling shame or embarrassment that we're not perfect. It's totally okay. If you can accept that, then you might be in a place of safeness within yourself. Comfortable saying things that might be hard for others to hear. Um, Desire or willingness to share your views, ideas, and opinions. If you have urges or you can do these things, these are probably signs that you feel safe. The impact from engaging effectively with others for you. So it's you engaging in these skills to hopefully interact well with others. So using, let's see if we go, using empathy, de-escalation, taking accountability, and curiosity over judgment. Doing those things yourself interpersonally can lead to feeling less nervous, less nervous system arousal, so less of that like hypervigilance in your mind and body. You can retain self-respect, you can retain your credibility, you can maintain or build trust, and you're able to be more present. The impact for others, for them, with using interpersonal effectiveness skills and engaging with others. It's like they are going to be less defensive and less unhelpful behaviors will come out during conflict, like yelling. They likely will have more willingness to share honestly, and they will likely have more willingness to compromise if you are engaging in interpersonal effectiveness skills. And of course, like vice versa, this, if the other person is engaging in interpersonal effectiveness skills, it can reduce the defensiveness in you. It can reduce falling into like automatic old patterns or unhelpful behaviors and conflict because it's kicking up a bunch of stuff in your nervous system, right? It can help you, bring down those defenses so that you can be more present, be more willing to hear them out intently and share where you're coming from honestly, so that we can actually maybe get to some sort of resolution here. Even if we just close it up and say, hey, we're not going to agree, but I hear where you're coming from. And the person's like, yeah, I hear where you're coming from. Great, let's move on. And it can be like that, guys. You don't have to adopt another person's view to resolve a conflict. It's not like somebody has to come over to the other person's side to say, okay, conflict resolved. Like that's not how it works. That's not how you validate somebody. In fact, you do not have to agree to validate. And it would be better for your nervous system to not agree if you don't. Because that misalignment you're going to notice in your mind and body. So you need to stick to what's true for you while also validating the views, opinions, feelings, and perspectives of other people, and of other people that are different than you, and of other people that have different views, opinions, values, and perspectives than you, to some degree. And there is a way to do this without interpersonal violence, but my effing God, people have so far to go. And it ultimately starts with ourselves, guys. Like, you have to take responsibility for your inability to manage defensiveness, for your inability to manage emotional dysregulation, for your inability to communicate effectively if you feel triggered or activated in your nervous system, for your inability to be empathetic or compassionate to yourself or other people during difficult times or when they engage in unhelpful or difficult behaviors. If you can't do these things for yourself, you are never going to be able to extend them to somebody else, nor effectively or well. And it is not going to result in effective interpersonal engagement, whether this is at work, with friends, at church, at the neighborhood barbecue, with your neighbor across the street, with your supervisor, with your clients, with a diverse population, at school, wherever. If you don't do these things for yourself, the chances that you are going to be able to interact effectively with others is slim. And the negative impact from Poor interpersonal effectiveness is huge. Look, it's all around. People that can't communicate and interact effectively is leading in a lot of harm, pain, violence, physical harm and death even. So these are necessary. Like, we could say these skills save lives because 100% they do. People knew how to engage in conflict, argument, disagreement in more effective and peaceful ways without having to change their view or condone or be complicit of something that they don't agree with. Then this is just going to keep happening. So we can come at it from, we need to not have or we can come from the perspective of we need to have blank, 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 blank. And I'm coming from the place today, instead of pointing fingers of we need to do this, we need to not have that, we need to adjust this, we need new policies on that. What I'm going to say is we need to practice doing these things for ourselves to engage interpersonally. So it's not like they need to do this and then there will be less violence. We need to sort of be looking at this as more of, I need to do this so that there is less violence or interpersonal ineffectiveness. And if you're out there saying, Sarah, I've never perpetrated violence on somebody else. Okay, cool. Me neither, not in the physical sense, but emotionally and psychologically, absolutely have I negatively impacted other people because I wasn't engaging effectively interpersonally. Yes. So again, you need to self-reflect and do some self-awareness. Are you sure you've never harmed anybody interpersonally? I doubt it. We're human. It probably happened accidentally and unintentionally at least one time in your life, if not many times. Now, I'm not saying if you harm somebody, you did it on purpose. Although premeditated interpersonal violence is maybe on purpose. There is other ways, that we can harm people that we didn't intend to, that we still need to take ownership and accountability for. Learn how to repair after ruptures, learn how to address things that are difficult or differences without offending or hurting somebody else, learning to state what you need and prefer without demanding or hurting somebody else in the expression of what you need or what's good for you. I honestly think if we had better social emotional learning and better ways to communicate with each other that we actually practice, a lot of this stuff would go away. But who am I? This is what I always say to my clients. They didn't put me in charge. So if they did, it would look different because I would have us doing different things, right? And at the very least, we can do our own work to engage effectively as we can, even if nobody else around you is doing that. There is a benefit for you and your nervous system to engage in these skills and strategies to interact well with other people, even if nobody else around you ever uses these skills. Okay, so there is benefit. Whether you see it or not, I've been working with people for so long that I know these are impactful in parent-child relationships and sibling relationships, and friendships between supervisor, supervisee, boss and subordinate, employer, employee, professor and student, whatever types of relationships where people have to interact. I have seen using these skills have a positive impact every single time. So there's really no reason that anybody could say, oh, I don't need those. Yes, you do. We all need these. We could all be practicing these. I can still be practicing these. I know all of these. I've been teaching and discussing these for over 15 years. I know how to point out if somebody else is not engaging in these. It's been much harder for me to point out when I'm not engaging in these. And so that's what I mean. We all have our own work to do. We have blinders on to our own stuff. So really take some time to self-reflect. How do you interact when things are difficult or hard? Or there's a disagreement or conflict, or somebody says that you did something that hurt them or had a negative outcome. How do you deal with that? How do you interact with people? How do you interact with yourself? It's making a huge difference, guys. All right, let me race through some of this stuff. How can I further help you with interpersonal effectiveness? Like I said, I can do one-to-one skills coaching. I'm doing the special September deal, which I'll talk about on the next slide. There are freebies on my website at www.sarahobrienlcsw.com. The free emotional intelligence quiz and the free emotional intelligence ebook. That's where we got to get started, guys. Your own emotional and self-awareness is huge. So go grab those. I created some new freebies just for this. So phrases to create calm and connection during conflict and phrases to respond effectively to gaslighting. If you want those freebies, contact me. I'm happy to send them to you. They're just not on my website. And then, of course, my digital products, one being the Sustainable Self-Care digital workbook designed to help you develop healthy habits that support your nervous system and health. This is that emotion regulation stuff, guys. This is the self-reflection, self-awareness. This is the how do I engage in empathy and compassion for myself and develop sustainable habits to keep me and my nervous system in a good place so that I can interact effectively with others in all my roles and responsibilities. And of course, I can train and speak in your business organization or with your team. So the September special for coaching is if you schedule one coaching session, either 30 or 60 minute, whatever you want, you'll get 2 of my digital products for free. Use my Calendly link there below, just calendly.com/thriveandShineCC/30 minutes to set that up. And then you will get 2 digital products of your choice and you get to keep the content for life. This has been our flow for September. We talked about generational trauma and epigenetics, the vagus nerve, interpersonal effectiveness, and we have Chasen Forehand as guests, nonprofit founder of HR4U, coming up next week. And then right after that, it'll just be me. And then the week after that, there won't be anything because I'll be gone. But then towards the end of October and all of November, I have guests, guys. So October's theme is going to be how becoming an entrepreneur has been healing. And I have some cool entrepreneurs that I've worked with coming on my show. And then November, we're going to be talking about new takes on old issues. And I got a couple of good clinical providers that I'm bringing on to talk about that kind of thing. I feel like I missed a slide in here. Oh, maybe not. Who am I? I'm a licensed clinical social worker located here in Virginia, licensed also in Maryland. I am a trauma-informed subject matter expert and leadership strategist. I am a mental health copywriter and content writer, speaker, trainer, and a number of other things. Friends of this podcast, friends of the Healing Hour podcast, the Let's Be Diverse podcast hosted by Andrew Stout, the Time to Change podcast hosted by Chasen Forehand. Catch that out. Check that out, guys. He's had some cool guests on there. Some stuff I think you'll really appreciate. The Empathy by Design podcast hosted by Julie Johnson. I did an episode with her again last month, and we were talking about how we weave DBT skills into the tiny habit build structure for sustainable self-care. So piggybacking on all the other stuff that I do and know. And then a trauma-informed future podcast hosted by one of my other colleagues and mentors, Katie Kurtz. All good stuff there. She is a social justice powerhouse. So if you're into that kind of thing, Katie Kurtz is your person. Thank you for tuning in. Remember always, you are loved, you matter, you are worthy. Healing is available to everybody. It starts with you. If you need help on that journey, please reach out to me. Again, you can find all information about me, all my freebies, all my digital products, episodes of this show, leadership stuff I've done, my psychotherapy work, all the certifications I have, all at www.sarahobrienlcsw.com. So check me out there. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, YouTube/@timelesstherapist. To catch all the replays of this show. It is free right now. It might not be free forever. So tell your friends to sign up. I am looking forward to having my buddy on next week. I hope you guys learned something. Let me know what you learned in the chat or in the comments. I'll do my best to go back sometime before the end of the week to comment all those. Today's kind of busy, so it might be another day, but I do read those. I respond to everybody as well as I can, and I appreciate it. And of course, tell your friends to subscribe, to check me out, to check out my services and products, and of course, to tune into the show. I'm glad everybody was here. I'll keep you updated next week about what's happened with my bestie. Keep her in your thoughts and prayers and sending good vibes and hugs and all that. Take care of yourselves first and always, and I will